Good morning, everyone. Dr. Stillman here with Jim Laird, and today, the quote of the day is, "Health is the greatest of human blessings." Hippocrates said that. And Jim wanted to talk today specifically about how health and good health is a process and a journey, not a destination. So take it away, Jim.
Well, I think, a lot of the people we deal with are kind of looking for these quick magical fixes.
I think you mean people are looking for quick magical fixes.
Well, in general, yes, but it's interesting, and sometimes there are quick magical fixes. For example, I had a gentleman I was working with who had been to multiple doctors and this and that, and was doing all sorts of things, and nobody had really addressed the fact he didn't have a gallbladder, and we were able to get him turned around really quickly.
Yeah,
just adding some supplements, right? But that's not always the case. Like when I first got, I guess, sick or had a major setback in my health, it was around 2010. It was just after a car accident, just after some, kind of relationship stress, the stress of the 2008 crash on my business. I came to the realization that a day off from the gym wasn't a day off. When you're working a 12-hour day and you're not sleeping enough. And that's where I started diving into stress management and diet and all these different things, and then incorporating that into my business. And then years down the road, when I had another health challenge, I was doing what I should be doing. I was working long hours. I didn't even think about the fact that I was spending 99.9% of my day inside. And that led to some health challenges that I had. So I had to kind of reinvent my approach to health. I was eating really well. I was exercising. I was doing all the things that people said I needed to do. And I needed to get serious about my light environment. And I did. And I was able to get myself back into a better place. And then I get into a car accident. That's actually a year ago this month. And the struggle to get my sleep back in order, I'm doing well. But I went in for a brain map the other day, and the lady was like, "You have some really crazy unresolved trauma that you need to deal with from your past," looking at my brain map. And she's like, "What's happened is this accident has kind of added stress, and your brain is really struggling to deal with some of this other stuff that you're holding on to. So I'm going to start doing some EMDR therapy." And it's just kind of interesting because here I am thinking I'm in good shape and I've got more work to do. So, you're constantly peeling back layers of the onion, and it's a constant process. And that's why having fundamental habits, having all this base foundation is so important, because you're constantly going to have health challenges. You're constantly going to have relationship issues, job stress, just life in general today is highly stressful with some of the insanity and lack of common sense that's going on in our culture and our society.
Right.
So you're constantly having to readjust and kind of.
It's a process.
It's a process. And so,
it's an iterative process. You're not going to come up with a solution overnight. And
right.
I mean, we see this over and over again. People will come in with an idea. Well, I'm going to need a supplement protocol and a round of lab testing. But it's just not that simple. And the reality is that I've seen so many people do really well with one supplement protocol for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but so many of them wind up exactly back in the same place. Probably the most impressive example of this that was just triggered by stress was a guy who, we did an allergy test. He cut out the allergens, and all of his issues went away. His IBS went away. He dropped 2 inches off of his waist in 2 weeks. He was very happy, very excited. And then he had a very serious medical diagnosis in a close family member that came up. And he said, "Look, virtually overnight, all my symptoms recurred. What do I do?" And I said, "Look, we've done everything for now that we really can do. Gave you the right supplements. We tested practically everything we could test. That's a little while ago now. So there's more stuff I could test because I've learned more things. But, at the end of the day, he had to engage with the process, which is really stress management."
Right. And that bathtub spilled over.
Right. And people don't understand how their body handles, copes with, and holds stress. It's a very kind of almost a spooky concept, which we talk about. I mean, we've been talking about it a lot, I think, because you and I are both seeing A, so much of it, and B, we're seeing what a profound impact mind-body medicine is having on our people.
Well,
just the other day,
I've dealt with it my entire life. This
Well,
is something I've been dealing with since the minute I was put on the earth, and we all do. We all
Right.
have, a lot of times, people's, chronic underlying mental stress and mental health play a huge role in, if you have that underlying chronic stress. It could be environmental stress, it could be emotional stress that's causing you to live in this state of where you can't relax. That just makes your bathtub more full, and it makes you more susceptible to having a spillover, right? So the idea is you want to do as many things as you can to basically slow down and become aware. And half the time, a lot of the things that get people in trouble are things that their brain is doing to keep them, basically in a state where they can function, right? They get used to being in a state where they're highly, aroused, or they thrive in a stress state. And so your brain is like, bringing in caffeine or nicotine or certain types of foods to kind of keep it rolling, because it doesn't like being relaxed. So a lot of times the habits that people have are due to the fact that they've got these unresolved issues that they've never really dealt with, and they just keep pushing them into the closet so they don't have to deal with them. And then one day that closet just spills out, and you're kind of forced to deal with it. And the whole time your body's been giving you these clues and these signs, whether it's you get sick a couple times a year, or every couple weeks you're so exhausted that you can't get out of bed, you lay in bed for 12 hours, and your body's trying to tell you, hey, like, you need to make some changes. Like, your energy levels aren't good, your hormone profile sucks, and your body's giving you these warning signs. And a lot of times with me, I literally most of the time have to go completely off the road and crash my car before I make the changes I need to make.
Right. And of course, it's funny. I imagine people listening to this, or some of them are thinking, when is the functional medicine doctor going to talk about the supplements and the organ meats and the glandulars and the diet? And all of that plays a role, because the nutrients you give your body effectively fill your gas tank. You're not as simple as a car, so the car analogies break down, although everyone knows I love the car analogies, which is ironic because I know almost nothing about cars, because I spend all my time.
That is a true statement.
People. It's a true
statement.
But, we have all these different components of our physical body that we require in order to function well and cope with stress. They're all wasted or impacted in different ways by different types of stress. And that's where the details of really comprehensive functional medicine lab testing can be helpful, because everyone's different. One person is going to have a zinc level that's half of what it should be. Another person is going to have a vitamin A level that's low. Another person is going to have tanked their testosterone. How these patterns of stress show up in lab work varies in every single case. And that's one of the big failings of the conventional medical approach, certainly, is that their goal or their approach is so driven on inadequate lab testing, because they don't appreciate the nuances of more comprehensive, more sophisticated lab testing. And, it's part of why people come to see me as a doctor, who come to work with us as a team coaching, because many people will come to coaching sessions and we'll talk to them about what labs we run and why. And, it's funny. I just had a patient who, I told him, hey, listen, get your testosterone levels checked. He had them checked by his PCP. And of course he was low, which surprised the doctor. He had to convince this guy to actually test the labs. But the other thing that I found in the functional medicine world is that a lot of the doctors and practitioners, they just test a lot of things, put someone on a ton of supplements, and then they don't have any time with them to coach them through the process of getting and being well, much of which has nothing to do with the supplements and everything to do with what else is going on in their life and going on around them.
I remember back in the, I guess it was 2010, 11, when I got colitis, and I went to a functional medicine doctor, good dude. But I remember having a list of supplements that were like 1.5 miles long. And it was something like $600 or $700 worth of supplements. And there wasn't any discussion other than getting meat out of my diet on lifestyle. And it was very interesting, to say the least. And I took some of the supplements, and obviously I felt better for a little while, but the root cause of of my problems was that I was working too much. I wasn't sleeping enough. And, I was training like an absolute lunatic, and I needed to find some ways to work in, as Paul Chek states, and restore and relax and go into the rest and digest state, because I was spending so much time in the deadlift heavy things, run around like a maniac state. And, there was no mention of that. Just basically lots of supplements to try and prop me up,
Yeah, exactly. We need to talk a little bit though about because one of the things you just said is one of the things that I think trips people up the most. You said the strategy of run around, lift heavy things, deadlift things, heavy things. But I repeat myself. And I think people don't realize that subconsciously your brain is modulating your autonomic tone, your autonomic system, which is the part of your nervous system that you're not aware of.
Right.
And it's affecting your digestion, your heart rate, how much your heart is pumping, how your brain is functioning. It's affecting all these things. And that balance is driven by processes within the central nervous system, but also energetic and I'll say physical inputs into your physical body. What a lot of people are doing with supplements is they're trying to modulate that system, but they're frankly failing to get lasting results, because what they're effectively doing is using the emergency brake to stop a car that you've got the gas pedal floored in.
Well, I would make the argument that they're using the supplements to enable them to keep driving hard. And instead of
depending on the supplement and the situation.
Pardon me. Yeah. Instead of saying like, hey, like you're blowing your engine, your tires are bald, your brakes are bad, you need to take it in the shop, you need to do some work. You need to learn how to relax, right? Because we'll get stuck in this state where you literally overbreathe and you can't turn it off. And that's, I was coaching a high school basketball team. I was training, 6 to 8 sessions a day, plus lifting on top of that. I was taking performance enhancing drugs, which allowed me to push myself even further than I would have without them. And the thing is like, okay, let's take more supplements. Let's do this in order to keep up with the pace that I'm at, instead of looking at it like, okay, my body's trying to teach me a lesson. I can't maintain this pace. I need to learn how to shut off my nervous system. I need to learn how to relax. I need to, and a lot of times it takes hitting the wall and complete exhaustion for people to finally realize, look, I need to learn how to chill the F out, instead of, going and going and going. Because then the problem with going and going and going is once you get addicted to that sensation, it's really hard to learn how to relax, and people will come to me over the years and they'll be like, I need a new coach. I just lack motivation, or the music needs to be louder, or, it comes down to like, maybe necessarily not. What you need is more rest, so you have the motivation to work hard. It's just a mindset that a lot of people kind of overlook, right? And a lot of the people that are reaching for supplements, or they're reaching for the latest energy drink, they're looking for a way to prop up their lifestyle, which is basically, causing the issues that they're having.
Agreed. Right. And we see a lot of enabling going on in the medical system of this. Oh, you're tired. Here's a stimulant. Oh,
here's a thyroid. Here's thyroid.
Right.
Here's Adderall.
Exactly. You can't sleep. Here's some Ambien.
Yeah.
You can't focus. Here's some Ritalin, and on and on and on. And, the upgrade from that, the better thinking, I would say, is giving the patient the nutrients they need in order to run those systems so that they feel and function well. But again, in many ways, that's still enabling them to drive their car too hard. Because what we see, over and over again is that when you don't address the fundamental underlying lack of rest, lack of relaxation, lack of positive thinking, what ends up happening is no amount of nutrients and supplements basically suffices to fix the underlying problems that then, or the problems that then emerge. You just run out of. It's a funny term I came up with. I call it therapeutic runway. You basically have a certain amount of time that you can use the supplements to help the patient cope, and then after that, if you haven't fixed the underlying problem, either they'll develop new symptoms or their current symptoms will just get worse.
Paul Huberman has a number of great podcasts on dopamine and the effects he had.
For people listening, do you want to just read the question?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. That's true. Good point. Paul asked, does anyone know of a study of the effects of dopamine release without effort? And I would just say that Huberman has a whole bunch of podcasts on this where he gets into immense detail. And there was a clip floating around. I think I shared it on my Instagram of him talking about how everyone getting a ribbon and is rewarded for mediocre or no work basically leads people to not wanting to work at all. And they've done studies on this where everyone's given a reward, and basically it just basically decreases people's willingness to work. So he's like, you only want to give rewards to people that work extremely hard and give a good effort. And you don't want to just reward everyone, because then there's no incentive for anyone to work, right?
Right.
And this goes into the economic model as well. We can get it. That's a big rabbit hole and piss a lot of people off, but that's fine.
Sure.
But yeah, he gets into like insanely great detail about that. And that's one of the big problems with our society is easy dopamine, right? Whether it's the phone or pornography or, instant gratification type stuff. That's a big part of the problem we're having. And that's why if you want to own your health, you have to make some choices to get you back in touch with nature, and for you to use technology to set up the life that you want, like we do in our practice, so we can spend time outside. And, we get to do things and travel and do things that other people don't get to do, but we struggle with it. I know I do, but we don't allow the technology to use us. Right. And so you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I agree. And, to go back to the title and the topic today, which is that it's a process, not a journey. I think a lot of people lose sight too, that it's not you're not going to get your body into a good place and then be able to go out and do the things that made you sick again. You may in moderation, but you don't just fix your body in kind of a static way. It's a dynamic system.
Yeah. And you're constantly going to have new challenges, right?
Right.
Relationship stress. But, the better effort you put into your self-care, the more resilient you're going to be when you run into, one of the things that when I work with people, one of the beauties of what I've done and do is I got to work with people over a 20-year period of time. And I've seen people go through divorces. I've seen people have to take care of loved ones. One of the most stressful things is caretaking of a parent. And I see what the health effects that has on people. Right. And, for people like that, I had this one lady I worked with for years, and she's like, well, I want to train harder. And I'm like, well, you're up half the night taking care of your mother who's got, Alzheimer's disease, and you aren't getting any sleep. Now is not the time for you to train really hard. Now is the time for you to challenge yourself, but do it in a way that's more restorative than a beatdown type thing. And she's like, okay. And you have to adjust what you're doing according to what's going on in your life,
Right.
And so, and a lot of people don't want to hear that. And there are times where you have to suck it up and push through in an emergency situation or a competition situation, but that can't be your norm. That you can't live there for long periods of time. Even professional athletes that are young, that have a lot more wiggle room, they still have an off season for a reason.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Stillman, it's probably time for us to get on with our day. If you need any help with setting up some fundamentals and basically establishing some good habits, we have a course called the Fundamentals of Wellness, where we go through all our basic fundamentals, and we also include some group coaching in that. There's a link in our link trees for that. Mine, you will go to, it'll say the 5 biggest mistakes people make in their wellness. We're also doing a webinar on testosterone, and kind of a webinar at the end of the month, basically for men, men that are struggling with low energy, low libido, lack of purpose, really kind of diving into, and we're going to do some broadcasts here in the next couple of days where we get into like, the what men are struggling with today in our modern world. And so you can basically follow us you go to our YouTube channels, you'll see that that link to that webinar, and you can just hit the reminder button.
We hope to see you there.
24th of June, 24th of this month of June. So
that's right, 24th of June. I think it's at 11 a.m., but don't quote me on that.
That is correct. So
thanks everyone for watching. Post your comments and questions in the comment section. Take care.
Yeah. Let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to chat about or rant about. We'd be happy to do that. And make sure you get outside today. You deserve it.